What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of NFL Turf Talk. We are here on DSM Media, streaming to you live. I am here, you know me, Scotty, your host, and I am here with my most dedicated co-host, Dylan Davis. Make sure you're following Dylan at DylanJD98. Make sure you're following myself at Scotty Drown. And, of course, make sure you're following DSM Media on all streaming platforms, on all social media platforms. But first and foremost, make sure you're following us on Twitter at DSM_media. Dylan, what is good, my friend? How are you doing tonight? You ready to talk some NFL football, NFL playoffs, I should say here?
What's going on, man? Yeah, just getting the show shared out so that everyone can tap in and join us. And guys, if you want to comment and be interactive on the show, head on over to our YouTube or Facebook page where you can see Jason right now. We can pull your comments up on the screen and get your opinions or questions in as much as possible because Twitter still doesn't want to, Scotty, treat us good. And we are unable to view or pull up any comments posted to our Twitter. So if you want to be interactive, head on over to, or even our Twitch account. But yeah, man, I'm good. Obviously, we talked about the Eagles game on the Faithful Fanatic show on Monday, so we won't dive into that really too much tonight. We're just going to be looking around the league. There was a lot of action in Week 16 that had, playoff implications. There's a ton more action in Week 17 this Sunday with more playoff implications. And I just want to let everyone know this is going to be so much more NFL based than Eagles tonight because this Sunday live 10 a.m. Scotty and I here on Turf Talk on DSM Media will be dedicating that show to a strictly Philadelphia Eagles Washington football team pregame show. So come hang out with us, have a drink. We'll drop the link for anyone that wants to join, pop in for a second, say what's up, give your thoughts on the game, ask us any questions about that day because the Eagles have a chance to clinch a playoff spot this week. I never thought I would say that this season, Scotty. The Eagles have a chance to clinch a wild card spot in Week 17 with 2 games left remaining. So tonight's going to be cruise control.
Yeah, we're going to be chilling tonight. We're going to be chilling. Obviously, we bring the energy to every episode, but we're not talking birds tonight, and that's a little different.
Not emotional.
We can remain unbiased. We can really just be as transparent as possible tonight. And it's something I'm looking forward to, especially with the way the NFL playoff picture is shaping up. So let's dive right in, man. Enough of the house cleaning to start the show. I'm sure everybody's tired of that. But as you know, it is necessary every single episode if you want to support DSM Media. So make sure you're doing all of that. Week 16 headlines, Dylan. Where do we want to start? Do we want to just start with Thursday Night Football and kind of how that played out?
Yeah, dude, we can start there. Like I said, I think we covered it a little. I think we covered what was last week's game.
So last week's game was
San Fran and Tennessee.
We did cover it a little bit, so we don't need to spend a ton of time on it.
And then obviously the 2 Christmas Day games. But no, we can go over those because I think all 3 of those games had major playoff implications. So yeah, let's start with that game. Like I said on Sunday's episode, I was wrong with this one, Scotty. I think you were as well. Yeah. You threw the question to me that night, who do you trust more in a game like this? And I went with Jimmy Garoppolo. I went with the San Francisco 49ers. And A.J. Brown and Ryan Tannehill said, hold on, because they came out in a big way. A.J. Brown had a welcome back type of game.
Yeah.
They were able to keep their division lead over the Indianapolis Colts, who obviously Saturday take down the Cardinals in a big win. And those 2 are fighting for the AFC South. So
yeah.
So for Thursday night's game, man, I was surprised by it. I don't know how Tennessee continues to win these games against playoff competition. They're just not that good to me, and they just continue to find ways to win. They're a confusing team to try to figure out.
Yeah, to say the least. And I'm with you. I was kind of thinking that today, like the wins that they've been able to reel off since Derrick Henry, went out for the season. It's actually kind of amazing where they're still, stationed right at the top of that division, right ahead of the Colts, who have been on fire. And, as we get down the stretch here, if the Titans, we'll have to take a look at their remaining schedule for this season. But as we get down the stretch here, how much are those losses by the Colts to Tennessee going to bite the Colts in the ass when it comes to, winning the division? Obviously, they're looking like they're going to make the playoffs for sure. But as far as winning that division. If they could have just grabbed one of those games against Tennessee, who knows what this could look like. But, that's beside the point. I thought this was a huge win for Tennessee on Thursday Night Football. You mentioned it. A.J. Brown comes out. He restaples his name in the top wide receiver conversation. But Deebo Samuel, once again, it seems like it's kind of a recurring thing. We're talking about him each and every week because he's really stapled himself as a top 5, in that top 10 wide receiver group in the NFL as well. And he's been a top 5 wide receiver this season. So it's been fun to watch him, play. And that's kind of what I had written down here is kind of like A.J. Brown versus Deebo Samuel in that game because the offenses weren't super effective. It was just key players making key plays. I think the other takeaway, obviously Tennessee, huge win for them. They keep hold of the AFC South there, but San Fran drops one. And I believe San Fran, am I wrong here? Is San Fran already locked in as a playoff team?
San Fran is not locked in as a playoff team. I don't believe so.
I didn't see how they could be, but for some reason I remember seeing something over this last week that said that the 6 NFC teams are locked in and that, the rest is just the fight for the 7 seed. I could be off there. And, if you
might be right because tiebreakers and everything, I'm not sure of. Yeah. Jason doesn't believe they're locked in yet either because they do hold the same record as the Eagles, which again, we'll talk about Sunday, but it's very interesting as the Eagles, one of their 3 steps to locking up a spot this week is a San Francisco win, when in reality, if the Eagles win and San Fran loses, the Eagles could be looking at the 6th seed in the NFC.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a weird dynamic.
And the reason I bring that up, Dylan, is because obviously, and I'm sure everybody's heard about it by now, but Jimmy G tore a ligament in his thumb. So it's very up in the air if he's going to be playing on Sunday. Right. And then on top of that, how good is Jimmy G anyways? You know what I mean? So with a torn ligament in his thumb, I'm not sure that you want to throw him out there, but do you want to throw a rookie Trey Lance out there in the middle of trying to get a playoff spot? So they are in a bit of a sticky situation, as Jason mentioned there. And that's kind of why I brought that up because, aside from the loss here, you also lose your starting quarterback in a sense. He's going to be hampered in a sense. So that's something to keep an eye on. But San Fran, they have looked so good over these last few weeks. And then just to drop one against Tennessee, which we both thought that they would pull out. But, Tennessee moves on and we'll see how the rest of that plays out. But let's take a look at the Saturday matchups, the Christmas Day matchups between Green Bay and the Browns and the Colts and the Cardinals. Obviously, we talked about them a little bit on Sunday with Gant, but the Packers dropped the Browns 24-22. Obviously, Devontae Adams dominated this game. Baker Mayfield kind of became, disjointed. He kind of lost himself in this game, had 4 interceptions. The Browns dropped to 7-8. Green Bay moves to 12-3. They have a firm hold on their division, obviously, but they're starting to, create a firm hold on the NFC in general. They're looking at a game against Minnesota in their division this upcoming week, and if they want to stay ahead of the Bucks, the Rams, the Cowboys, they do need to keep on winning. But the Browns, they dropped to 7-8, and that's a team that I know me and you talked about to start this season as a legit contender, and to see where they are now, Dylan. Yeah, legit. Yeah, it's laughable at this point. Thoughts on this loss, their place in their road to the playoffs?
Forget the road to the playoffs when it comes to the Cleveland Browns in 2021. Yeah. I think that was my biggest takeaway. When you just look at the 2 box scores when it comes to quarterback play, one dude was 21 of 36 with 4 interceptions, and the other was 24 of 34 with 3 touchdowns, right, and no picks.
Right.
So, to me, this problem with Cleveland, this loss for Cleveland goes beyond 2021 because now you have a problem at the quarterback position. Yeah. Cleveland has battled injuries and COVID all year long. I understand that. But like you said, Scotty, for a team that we thought to be in the top tier of the AFC, fighting for the AFC Championship, fighting for a Super Bowl appearance with the Buffalo Bills of the world, with the Kansas City Chiefs of the world, they're just not that this year. And now you have a chance. You hung around all year long, even with all these guys out and the Odell situation that you had to move on from. Not only did your franchise quarterback not give you a chance. All he needed to do was give him a chance to win this game. Not only did he not give you a chance, he played you out as the headphones drop. He played you out of a chance to win that game.
Yeah.
4 interceptions, 4 horribly thrown interceptions in this game by Baker Mayfield. It's inexcusable. It's laughable. And they have a problem not just not making the playoffs this year when we thought they could be contenders. They have a problem going forward because now they might need to look for a guy that can lead this team to a division title and so on into the playoffs, because he's not proving to be that right now.
Yeah, and I think the problem as we look at this season with Baker Mayfield, it's not that he couldn't be a great game manager. It's not that he can't be successful when he has those 2 horses in the backfield, that them being Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. But it's the fact that he can become a detractor, right? Like, he can become a detractor for this entire team. He's not a player that's going to lift this team when they need help. He's actually somebody that can take them down further. And
right.
That's the worst part to see with Baker. Obviously, we know how highly touted he was coming out of college. He's a number 1 pick. And to see this kind of play out, he's looking at an extension year here. If I'm Cleveland, there is no way in hell I'm giving him the extension that he's probably looking for. And then you have to look at Baker Mayfield and think, what is the next step for Baker Mayfield? Like, does he go to a team? Like, if he goes to another team, is he a starting caliber quarterback where he's going to have to compete for, a starting quarterback position? Is he going to go to a team where he has the starting position locked? Or is he going to go to a team where he has to be a backup? And that's where he has to look for another opportunity. That's kind of crazy to think about, because just a year ago when the Browns were, going right into the playoffs, we were talking about that extension and Baker Mayfield. We were having the franchise quarterback conversation with him.
Right.
And now it's kind of out the window. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I think you're right, because it's not just this season type of situation that this has turned into. It's the future now that's in question.
And I don't know what changed in 2021, because Scotty, the conversation we had before the season started about Baker was he took a step last year, right? We saw that clear as day.
Yeah.
Now, but he wasn't able to make that play. He wasn't able to make the play in a crucial moment to get his team over the hump, to go out and win a game for his team when he needed to. That was what I was looking for this year. Not only did he not accomplish that, he took 5 steps backwards, Scotty. Like, you can't play your team out of that game. You have a chance to still contend for your division, still contend for a wild card spot. I know that's a tough task to ask in Lambeau in December against Aaron Rodgers when he's playing spotless. You only lost by 2 points.
2 points, man.
So if you play a clean game, think about how the outcome of that game could have been different. Yeah. I know that's Monday morning quarterback. I know that's hindsight, right? But, like, you lost by 2 in a game in which you threw 4 picks. Yeah. If you don't do that, maybe you're on the other end of that win-loss column.
And that's why it's so frustrating, Dylan. I can only imagine as a Browns fan, right? Like, it's so frustrating because they only lose by 2 points to what we call right now the best team in the NFL. And that's with Baker Mayfield throwing 4 interceptions. That is just incredible. And you just think, we talk about a clean game. If he just only throws 3 interceptions, if he only throws 2 interceptions, there's a good chance that they probably won that game. And that's the sorriest part about it, for the Browns. So they got question marks moving forward. Obviously, the Packers, they're looking good. Aaron Rodgers was hobbling around in that game, so it'll be interesting to see how that toe affects him. That toe's
been an issue, man.
It's an issue, and what worries me with the Packers, it's not, down this stretch if it gets re-injured or anything like that, because I think it's just a week-to-week pain tolerance type of thing. But if in a playoff game, hopefully they get the bye week because they're going to need it for his foot. Because if they get to a playoff game and he gets trampled on his foot one bad time and he has to go out of the game, they are in major trouble. I mean, we've seen a glimpse of Jordan Love, right? We don't want to see that in the playoffs if you're a Packers fan. So they got to protect him at all costs. That bye week is actually really important for them.
For sure. I mean, you're talking about the MVP of the league right now, probably. So he's playing spotless football. You can't afford to lose him no matter who your backup is. And like you said, if he goes down, this team goes down.
Yeah.
So the fans in Green Bay are praying that they lock up this number 1 seed. They are praying that they get the first round bye, and they're praying that Aaron Rodgers can start every game of this postseason.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And it's funny what Jason says there. He says he thinks he's retiring. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know, man. He plays so well that I just, he is a different person, so it's hard to predict what he would do. Part of me feels like he wants to go somewhere else and prove that he can win there. So I could see that side of things, but I can also see the side Jason's portraying there.
You ever envision someone in another team, but like the aesthetic of it just doesn't, in your mind, you're like, nah, he can't go there, right? Like,
yeah,
the team that I threw to you months ago, and then I think would be perfect is Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh with that defense, with Najee Harris and some of those young weapons. Like, I'm not the biggest Juju Smith-Schuster fan. I can't stand Chase Claypool, but Deontay Johnson, like, they've got guys with Tomlin,
Freiermuth, nice young tight end,
instant Super Bowl contenders
Najee
in
Harris,
the AFC.
Nice defense.
But like when you just picture Aaron Rodgers,
and they could go and get Devontae Adams as well,
right? But picture Aaron Rodgers in black and gold. Does that aesthetics, like, it just doesn't? You just think about it, and you're like, that can never happen.
I hope it never happens. I don't want Aaron Rodgers on Pittsburgh. I do agree, though. I mean, it is a perfect situation. As Jason says down there, the dream scenario. Not a dream scenario for me, per se, but dream scenario for that black and gold for sure. And, I mentioned there, they can go out and somehow get Devontae Adams to pair him up. And I would not put it past Devontae Adams for wanting to stay with Aaron Rodgers no matter where he goes. Why would you not want to go with that guy? So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But you mentioned MVP candidates, which sparks my thoughts on this next game. We're going to talk about the Cards and the Colts. Obviously the Colts get this W. We'll talk about how it affects Arizona and affects the Colts. But does, not scoring, not getting that touchdown for Jonathan Taylor, does that hurt his MVP case despite him going over 100 yards rushing again?
This was the worst game for Jonathan Taylor in a very long time.
Still over 100 yards.
He didn't find the end zone. He, rushed for over 100, but I think he ran the ball 27 or 28 times. Like, the Cardinals held his per carry average low for standards for Jonathan Taylor this season. So the Cardinals did a good job in that case, but the quarterback was able to make plays when it mattered. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But as far as his MVP status goes, Scotty, I think it does, because if a non-quarterback is going to win the MVP, your numbers have to be, jumping off the page. And not that they're not already, but we gave you, his numbers last week before the Saturday game.
Yeah.
Well, nothing changed. You added nothing in the touchdown column. You only added like 107, 108 yards to the total. So as far as his MVP, it's not right. It's probably not fair.
The touchdowns is what's separating him.
Right. If he tallies over 22 touchdowns with over 2,000 total yards, like I said, that might not be fair, but it's how it is. He's a non-quarterback. That's an extremely difficult award to win if you're a non-quarterback. Did his team win the game? Yes. But Scotty, did they win the game because of Jonathan Taylor? No.
Right.
And that's what would propel him to winning that award.
And I wish Jason was here last Thursday for this conversation that we had about this, because I get what Jason's saying here. He's the most important player to his team. If the Colts don't have Taylor, I'm not going that far, man.
Nah, you can't.
I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers. I'm looking at the Packers. If the Packers don't have Aaron Rodgers and they have Jordan
any
Love,
team, that's the problem, Scotty. I'm not saying that he's not extremely important. I'm not saying that the Colts would be where they're at without Jonathan Taylor. They wouldn't. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, Tom Brady and the Bucks, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Subtract them from those teams, and those teams are nowhere near where they're at right now. So that conversation is very difficult to have, because they're all the most valuable players to their respective teams.
Right.
So
and it's hard. It's really hard.
That's a hard statement to prove.
It's not fair either. I get it. It's not fair to, non-QB players. But in a sense, I get that it's not fair, but it is fair in a sense.
It is because quarterback is the most important
position
in any professional sport. It's a fact.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you, but I think running backs are so undervalued. Definitely undervalued. Definitely undervalued. But I think the other side of that argument is like when you see these teams with dominant running backs and they lose one, like look at the Vikings, for instance, when they lose Dalvin Cook and then Alexander Madison comes in and he dominates too. Like it just shows that there's not that much disparity between the best.
Well, look at the Eagles. The Eagles had the number one rushing attack in football. Is that because of the running back or is that because of the offensive line and the scheme and everything like that? And Jalen Hurts helping that out. So I agree. See that's.
But did you look at Aaron Rodgers' numbers last season? You have to look at his numbers
because Aaron Rodgers' numbers were so freaking ridiculous.
Like, I think Derrick Henry, if he put up those numbers, like if Jonathan Taylor puts up those numbers like Derrick Henry, the 2,000 plus yards, 20 plus touchdowns this year,
and I think he's deserving.
I think he is the MVP. If they can eclipse, what are they right now? 9-6. They can hit 10, 11 wins this season. I think he can be the MVP. I just, when you look to last season, Aaron Rodgers had such a crazy year. 40 plus touchdowns, like less than 10 interceptions. It was like maybe even less than 5 interceptions, if I'm not wrong.
There. Oh, it was. But
and over 4,000 passing yards.
I think yes. I think they are undervalued because
I think that's a great point.
Because what's not replaceable in this league? A franchise Hall of Fame quarterback. It is replaceable. A really good running back.
Yeah, exactly. I get it, Jason. I do. I think when you're talking about Aaron Rodgers having statistically one of his best career years last season, and then you look at Derrick Henry, who has, a great running back year. It's a great running back year. But Aaron Rodgers, if we're talking about top 2, top 3 performances in his career as far as a regular season, that's going to always outvalue the Derrick Henry's
exactly.
season. That's just my opinion. But
if a running back has the effect that Derrick Henry had last year or Taylor has this year and puts up those types of numbers, and a quarterback isn't blowing, them out of the race because of his numbers. That's what Aaron Rodgers did last year, right? But in the year that Adrian Peterson won or that Sean Alexander won back in 2005, I don't know what quarterbacks' numbers were that year or records like that. I have to go back and look. But they may have won because their numbers were so astronomical and no quarterback, put out a crazy case to win it. If there's ever a year where a quarterback's going off and their team's extremely successful, the quarterback is going to win that battle 10 times out of 10. It might not be fair, but that's how the award goes.
And I would argue Jonathan Taylor probably has a better chance than Derrick Henry had last season at this time. Jonathan Taylor right now has a better chance just because Aaron Rodgers' numbers are
down,
pedestrian, right? Compared to his standard of his career.
You have national media arguing for the fact that Jonathan Taylor should be in the race and should win the award.
But that's part of it, is the historical part is oh my God, Jonathan Taylor's going to win MVP and Derrick Henry didn't, right? It sucks when you think of it that way. And I get where Jason's coming from. So I definitely respected Jason, but just keeping it moving, staying with the game, but keeping it moving here. We got stuck on the MVP combo there for a little bit. You mentioned it a little bit. You kind of, subliminally mentioned it, but Carson Wentz made some great throws down the stretch in this game. Obviously, had some questionable decisions early on. Mm-hmm. Every quarterback does. That's another thing, Dylan. And I've realized it as I'm grading Jalen Hurts week to week is every single missed throw. It's oh, there's one. You know what I mean? We got to stop doing this because every quarterback makes bad throws. Every quarterback makes bad decisions from time to time. It's just about how much you can minimize those from game to game. So I do just want to throw that out there. I know that I think it's this era of social media and being overly critical every week from play to play. And we all just think we're coaches. But Wentz looked great. Let's not hide from it. He looked better than Kyler Murray in a sense. Kyler Murray started out the game hot, had a 57-yard rush, but definitely slowed down. The Colts defense started to kick in. And ultimately, Carson Wentz just made the plays he had to make down the stretch. But I want to get your thoughts just on Kyler Murray versus Carson Wentz in this game.
Carson outplayed him. Carson made plays when he needed to make plays for his team down the stretch to win. Kyler didn't. And it's very interesting, Scotty, because Carson Wentz isn't a fan favorite anymore. Carson Wentz is actually the total polar opposite of a fan favorite anymore, right? For a lot of people. And everyone loves Kyler. Kyler, because since he lost D-Hop, looks completely pedestrian. No one talks about it.
Yeah.
Carson, who does Carson Wentz have to throw the ball to, Scotty? Michael Pittman, Pascal, T.Y. Hilton every 7 weeks when he finally gets on the field, right? But no one wants to talk about that. That throw that he made, very few quarterbacks can make that throw. He has been so damn good this year, and it's not getting recognized, and that's fine. But it is ironic, though, because his 2 worst games is what could cost him a division title. Not even his worst games, because that overtime Tennessee game was maybe his best game of the freaking year until 2 minutes left, or 5 minutes left, and he just had a complete and utter meltdown twice in the final minutes and overtime period of that game. So it is ironic how Carson Wentz has been so good. And I think they've won, 5 in a row? They've won a handful of games now in a row. And beating quality teams down the stretch. They're coming off a New England win and then a Cardinals win on the road down the stretch here, right?
Dismantled the Bills as well during that stretch.
Exactly. But no one talks about it, Scotty.
It is weird. It's weird, man. Obviously,
because it's fun to hate them for people.
We know why in Philly, though, right? Like, we know why in Philly, but, like, why is national media like that? You know what I mean? Like, any other season, we would be kind of debating with this team. Now, obviously, Jonathan Taylor's been, like, overwhelmingly good. But I feel like any other season, if this was a different quarterback, we would be discussing who is the more valuable player with that team, right? Like, if you look at Carson's numbers, they are pretty excellent. He's under 10 interceptions. He's
25 touchdowns,
6 interceptions. So could use a little more touchdowns, obviously. But overall, Carson Wentz has been great. It's not talked about at all. But I think as we get closer to the playoffs, as we see them in the playoffs, it's going to have to be talked about. And excuse me, I've been drinking a beer, man. It's making me burp so often. No, as we get
without me.
As we get closer to the play, I have to get ready for this KD infused night of Brooklyn versus Philly. So I got to be, a little intoxicated for that. But, as we look at the Colts, man, I think the conversation is going to arise, especially if the Colts and the Eagles make the playoffs. It's definitely going to arise in Philadelphia. I know it's going to happen. But we're going to start talking about where Jalen Hurts has kind of taken the Eagles, where Carson Wentz has been able to guide the Colts. And it's going to be an interesting conversation because both quarterbacks have been better than expected, I think you could say, right? Like,
as of right now, it's worked out well for both parties.
Exactly.
Both parties are in the playoff mix. Both parties seem to be playing well over the last, in December. So as of right now, it seems like for both sides, it was the correct thing to do. I did see that
comeback player of the year, but then somebody else is going to argue Dak. So that's another interesting conversation.
Well, let's call it what it is. And I don't mean to be an asshole, but Dak's coming off a gruesome injury. That plays a factor into it.
Right.
Carson's coming off of, worst season ever, him getting ran out of Philly, or he didn't want to come back to Philly, everything that went into that situation. I don't know. I don't know which one is more deserving. They both make a case, but I'd say that definitely the sympathetic jury leans towards Dak's side.
Yeah.
Because you look at the gruesome injury that he suffered.
Which I would love, obviously I'm not going to sit here and compare wins. We're not going to go back down that road, but I would love to see Wentz's year after he came back from the ACL, just his totals. I know he didn't play the whole season. I know Nick Foles ended up coming back and taking the reins, but I would love to see the statistical matchup of that. Just curiosity. I'm not saying that Wentz was possibly better. Most likely it wasn't, but it will be interesting to see how it plays out. I like Don calling that out because it's something that hasn't really crossed my mind with Wentz, but
no, me neither.
Thinking about it from perspective of him getting benched last year, having such a career high in turnovers, and then going to a different team, leading them to the playoffs, and obviously playing really good. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think what we could say about the Colts right now, that's a team in the AFC you do not want to play. Tennessee has beat them twice. You don't want to see them in the playoffs, Tennessee. None of those teams want to see the Colts in the playoffs. They have a really good defense. They have a sturdy run game, and they have a quarterback, not everybody will want to admit, but can make all the throws.
Right.
And that's what makes them a super dangerous
team. Carson comes out to play in the playoffs, that's TBD,
we'll see.
right?
We'll see.
And as a former, huge supporter of this dude, I'm going to be keeping an extremely close eye on the Colts games in the playoffs because it's something I craved for so long to see in Philadelphia, and I never got to see was Carson Wentz leading a team in the postseason. We didn't get the Super Bowl year. We didn't get in 2018, and he got knocked out within the first 2 possessions of 2019.
You know how sick I was, man?
It's intriguing to see it.
I went to that game against
the
Seahawks.
I. Froze my balls off all day.
Fucking so sick, man. And it was probably a couple series afterwards where I'm like, where the hell is Carson at? And then all of a sudden,
I didn't know it either.
You see it flash up on the screen, Carson, head injury, out. And I'm just like, what the fuck?
My uncle
go this whole game against Seattle with fucking Josh McCown at quarterback. I always wanted to see Wentz because he always struck me as a guy, in the biggest moments, he might make that play. And that's what I always wanted to find out about him. Unfortunately, we never got to see it in Philly, but we will see it this year in Indy, hopefully, if he can stay healthy.
I think it'll be cool.
It will be cool.
He played enough, and they're going to make the playoffs for the Eagles to get that first-round pick. Now, I know as Eagles fans, we probably shouldn't be hoping that, they get a higher seed or they make a run because then that lowers the pick for the Eagles first round. But it will be cool to see what he can do in a playoff atmosphere. Yeah. And also at the same time, if we're lucky enough to make the playoffs, what Jalen Hurts and this team can do, and we get playoff football in Philadelphia again. So it'll be cool to keep an eye on.
Win-win. Definitely cool to keep an eye on. Definitely, and I think it's something that we've thrown out there all season, but definitely rooting for Carson. I'm not in the camp, and I know you're not. I know Gent's not. I know a lot of people at DSM are not in that camp of, disrespecting Wentz, saying these personal remarks.
I mean,
I know he got put on the COVID list. Nobody's wishing ill will to Wentz. I don't care if he's vaccinated or not.
And I hate that argument, dude. Is he right there at this point with everyone almost in all 4 leagues, in all 3 leagues going on the COVID list? There is no right or wrong ananymore with this thing. Yes, are there dumbass conspiracy theories? Right. Are there political, it shouldn't be political. There shouldn't be any dumbass conspiracy theories about the vaccine. But Wentz isn't vaccinated. He's on the COVID list. 98% of the league's on the COVID list. What?
It's just another thing, to pick on Wentz. I won't participate in it, but what we can say is, good luck to Wentz. Good luck to the Colts. I got nothing against that organization.
Scotty, it's so funny.
We'll see how it plays out.
We are 34 minutes into the show, and we still are on the Saturday games.
I know.
Next week, we have to cover Sunday slate. We have to cover this week's slate. Holy shit.
To be fair, we had some extra storylines with those other games, which is maybe why they were scheduled on that slate in the first slate. But you're right. Let's get into some of the Sunday action. The first one I wanted to mention, just off the top of my mind, was the Bengals and the Ravens. Obviously, the Bengals came out. They dominated the Ravens 41-21. Second time this season where they have blown the smoke off the Ravens. And, looking across the season, obviously they're 2-0 against the Ravens. They have control of that division now. Joe Burrow, my man, 37 of 46, 525 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns. Obviously, Joe Mixon had a day. It seemed like everybody was having a day on Cincinnati. T. Higgins, my God, 12 receptions, 194 yards, and a touchdown. Yeah, whoa, what the fuck? These guys went off. It's like they had a bone to pick with Baltimore. You saw the comments about Joe Burrow. I believe it was from the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator, basically saying don't go, enrolling him in, or enrolling him in the Hall of Fame shrine, right? This guy, I mean, we can say whatever we want about Joe Burrow. It's probably too early to talk about Hall of Fame, but this guy's really, really good. He's in the top 5 of quarterbacks that you want on your roster going forward. But let's just salt.
No one was talking about giving this dude the jacket. No one was talking about putting this dude in the Hall of Fame. like you're just salty, bro, because he just went wild
Just
all
went the
over your
fuck wild.
defense.
And Joe Burrow said, or they asked him, what did that have any input on your decision to keep going after the Ravens in that game? And he said, maybe, and just kind of smirked, man.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about
Here,
him, bro.
he gave him a nice smack in the face.
That's what I love about him, man. But we see the Bengals take control of that division.
Yeah.
The Ravens obviously have dropped a few in a row here. They had a few close ones before this game, but obviously this was the turning point. Lamar and Huntley were out, so they were out their two top quarterbacks. Any takeaways from this game aside, from obviously Joe Burrow just being really good?
I mean, obviously, playoff picture-wise, I think it just moved the Bengals into winning the AFC North. I can't speak right now. My mind's all over the place. But on the opposite end, I think the Ravens are in trouble, dude. I know, obviously, Lamar is still questionable to play this week. He practiced practiced yesterday, and then today he, was limping around and wasn't a participant. They are in deep, deep trouble to even make the playoffs this year, Scotty. That's another team that had high Super Bowl, AFC Championship type of contention. There it is. The Bengals 9-6, the Ravens down at 8-7. They're still right in the mix. But if Lamar Jackson is not healthy enough to perform, they are in deep, deep shit. So I don't think anything from the Bengals side. Yes, they were firing on all cylinders, but I think the Ravens just dug themselves a few feet deeper.
100%. And, it's going to be a very strenuous task for the Ravens to get out of this hole. Now, obviously, they have some help because the Bengals go into next week. They have to play the Kansas City Chiefs. So that kind of stinks for the Bengals, but still, you look at them, they have the tiebreakers over the Ravens. You look at the Browns, the Steelers, they both just took huge L's. And it seems like the Bengals are in the driver's seat right now. All they need to do is really win one of their last two games, and I'm pretty sure they're going to win their division. So
I think so.
It's just a matter of, who's going to come out on Sunday. It's going to be the Bengals and Chiefs, and that's kind of the games that I was looking at, going into next season, which I guess we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But just thinking about the Bengals as a whole, the Ravens, it sucks because the Ravens dropping two of those to the Bengals, they're most likely not going to be able to win this division without holding that tiebreaker. But it seems like Joe Burrow owns Baltimore, so I want to throw that out there.
This team's fun, man. Scott,
fun,
and
man.
you mentioned the matchup this weekend, which you said, it's a shame. I know the Chiefs are red hot, and if I had to pick, gun to my head right now, I'd probably pick Kansas City to win this game. But that's not a lock. This is I love the timing of this matchup because, like you said, the Bengals can still just go 1-1 and they'll still win their division. Right. I'm almost 100% sure because the Ravens won't be able to catch them tiebreaker wise, even if the Ravens
play
won
the
both.
Rams this weekend too, so most likely a loss.
This team is so ahead of schedule. They're so young offensively. Now they can just focus, Scotty, in future drafts and free agency on the defensive side of the ball and get better on that side and invest in their offensive line. Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, you can throw him in the mix as well as a nice slot, as a nice number 3 on that team. They're so ahead of schedule. They're going to be a tough out in the playoffs because of this guy, like Jason is saying. They are going to be a tough out in the playoffs because of him. And I love the timing of this Week 17 matchup because it's going to be a test for both teams that are ascending right now heading into the playoffs. And it'll give one of them a confidence boost. One of them, if the Bengals can win this game, their confidence is going to be through the freaking roof heading into the postseason. And Scotty, they could be fighting for that number 2 seed or so because, the Titans drop one, the Titans win. The Titans drop one, the Bengals win. They have the same record, and depending on however the metrics work, because the metrics are just too confusing for me. However the Cowboys, if you were watching the Red Zone last weekend, they were explaining how the Cowboys could lock up the NFC East before they even played or whatever because of a strength of opponent. I'm like, how the hell does this go into it? It makes zero sense.
Yeah, I'm confused. The only thing that confuses me is the the tiebreakers versus strength of schedule. You know what I mean? Like, how does that
Dude.
weigh out? But we'll kind of just see how it plays out. I'm not gonna frustrate myself around it, but it is interesting. You talk about Tennessee and just looking at the top of that AFC playoff race right now. The Bengals, if it matched up today, would play the Patriots, which I don't know who you're taking in that game. The way the Patriots have looked the last few weeks,
Yeah.
I was so high on them like 2-3 weeks ago. The way they've looked the last few weeks, I'd probably go with the Bengals. I'm going to go with the better quarterback. They got
smacked in the mouth the last 2 weeks. Joe Burrow is just extremely hot right now, and playing a hot young quarterback like that, it's hard to bet against them, dude.
Which Tennessee, interesting enough. So there's two sides to that game with the Bengals and the Chiefs. So obviously, if the Bengals can win, you knock the Chiefs down. They have 5 losses there. The Titans could potentially win on Sunday if they beat the Miami Dolphins, which is a huge matchup again, by the way. They would actually move. They should actually move to the number 1 seed over the Chiefs if they were to win, just because they blew the doors off the Chiefs earlier in the season. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Whereas if the Titans lose, the Bengals win, Bengals could move into that 2nd seed, like you said there. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But Jason has the
calling
the
a shot now. Give him
okay.
Give him a little applause for the pick.
We'll remember that for sure.
Exactly. Bengals are going to go to the AFC Championship. I'm calling it now. I like it.
You look at their offense. I mean, who has? I mean, aside from the Chiefs, maybe the Bills. Who has a better offense on paper than the Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC?
No one outside of those 2 teams, and you could argue
better than the Bills.
Go down the line. I mean, the Chiefs are obviously so high-powered when healthy, so no one's atop of them when you have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. But you could argue they have more offensive weapons than the Bills do. Obviously, I know as of right now, we would rank Josh Allen ahead of Joe Burrow. I know
maybe
you have Stephon Diggs on that team, but yeah,
maybe Dylan.
Maybe
it's a combo now. I mean. That's something I want to ask you, and maybe we'll talk about it in the offseason, but where does Joe Burrow fall on this list of quarterbacks? Because I'm looking around the league, and I'm looking at, Justin Herbert. Obviously, we love Mahomes, Josh Allen's of the world, Lamar Jackson's of the world, and I'm looking at Joe Burrow, and I'm like, it's a conversation with every single one of these guys because I know, Joe Burrow has some nice young weapons out there in Cincinnati. Look at what Justin Herbert's working with in L.A. Like, he's got weapons in L.A. These guys got weapons around the league. We're not going to sit here and spit that card out.
If you're talking building a roster, you're going to go youth, right? Like, take Brady and Rodgers out of it and Stafford out of the scenario. It's Mahomes and Burrow? Like, Mahomes is number 1. Let's just throw that out there, number 1.
It's funny because it would be Mahomes, and then you have, I guess you have like this foursome here, what I would look at it as, of Mahomes, Burrow, Herbert, and Josh Allen. That would be probably top 4 off the top of my head as far as young quarterbacks, but I do need to go and look at the list, obviously.
I mean, Dak and Lamar you can throw out there as well, but
I'm picking all of those guys over those 2. I'm not going to lie.
I agree. Kyler's name would be thrown out there, but Joe Burrow, man, what I would do to get Joe Burrow in my team.
We're over here fantasizing over Joe Burrow right now. Just 2 other games I want to just touch on, and then we can kind of just give an overview as we look ahead to Week 17. Rams versus Vikings. Obviously, the Rams were able to take care of business for us, the Eagles, right? Beat the Vikings 30-23, which ultimately helped out the Philadelphia Eagles, as we all know, putting them up in that 7th spot to move ahead of Minnesota. Matthew Stafford once again struggled in this game, but the Rams showed a new side where they can win while their quarterback struggles, and that was interesting to see. It is amazing. It is amazing that can be done, right? The Rams were able to finally, pull one out, even though Matthew Stafford did turn the ball over a lot. He had 3 interceptions in this game. But Sony Michel, 27 carries, 131 yards on the ground, and 1 touchdown.
Don't talk to me about Sony Michel.
All the Darrell Henderson people out there, I'm sorry. I know he got beat up early. And Michelle had the game of his life, but he did help.
I'm still in the championship, so don't worry. I'm still in the championship.
Obviously, also Justin Jefferson continues to do his thing, over 100 receiving yards. Kirk Cousins over 300 passing yards, only 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But ultimately, the Rams secured that victory, which was great for the Eagles, as I mentioned. Other game we're looking at, we've kind of glossed over it a little bit as we've been talking today, but Bills over the Pats, 33-21. Yeah, that's the biggest one when we're talking about upper class playoff picture. Just switching around. Obviously, the Bills are at the head of the division right now. We moved the Patriots all the way down to the 6th seed.
Which
go ahead.
Oh man! Which if you go back and listen to me, you and Gint talk. I know Gint picked them to pick the Bills to win on Sunday, but go back to our discussions last week about this Bills team, underachieving and possibly being the 7 seed or not making the playoffs at all if they lose this game. Sorry, that's the best I can do. Sorry for doubting you. Stephon Diggs had a few choice words for New England fans as he scored. Yeah, that was a laughable take of me because now this team is not only most likely going to win their division, they are looking at quite possibly the number 2 or 3 seed in the AFC.
Right. Which is quite crazy, right? And you look at we kind of talked about it leading into this game, and as you mentioned, Gant did pick the Bills to win that, and ultimately they would win the division if they won that game. And I totally 100% agreed. If they won that game, they would win the division. I believe they got the Atlanta Falcons, and then
it is
New
very
York
easy
Jets.
for them. It is
Atlanta Falcons and Jets.
Of course, I got 900 teams written down with their remaining schedule, and I don't have the Buffalo Bills written down. So
It's the Falcons and Jets. So they got
Okay.
the Falcons this week, and then the Jets the final week. So
right.
obviously, if we're going to assume here that the Bills will take care of those games, which is interesting because the Falcons are still technically in the playoff picture, but the Bills could totally knock them out at this point, which I do expect them to do. So the Bills look like they got that division locked up all of a sudden. So what a change of scenery, right? And the Patriots, it'll be interesting to see them playing from that underdog role now. They kind of got their heads chopped off by the Bills now, and they're in the bottom tier of the AFC playoffs.
So I just want to hit on 2 quick games. The 3 teams are in the AFC West division before we move on here. Obviously the Raiders beat Denver 17-13. That's big for them because obviously I think if we looked at the 2, 7-7, both in the hunt last week, I think we all took Las Vegas a little more seriously than we took the Denver Broncos starting Drew Lock in his playoff picture. And Vegas with 2 games left have they've kept themselves right in that hunt. They have Miami's ahead of them right now. Miami has Tennessee and then New England to finish up the year. The Raiders, just as difficult, have the Colts and the Chargers ahead of them. And the Chargers have the Broncos and the Raiders. So that final spot in the AFC is going to be extremely difficult. And I didn't even mention the other 8-7 team, the Ravens. They got the Rams and the Steelers to finish. So that 7 seed in the AFC wildcard is going to be really key to keep an eye on. And that one team that I alluded to, they should be banned from the league for the final 2 weeks. They should have their playoff card revoked. They should not have a chance to make the playoffs. You can hear the pain. As a man who bet heavily on the Los Angeles Chargers on Sunday, my God, I don't even know if I have the words to put together to talk about that game. But do you want to explain to me how you allowed Davis Mills and Rex freaking Burkhead to drop 41 on your heads? You are fighting for a playoff spot. Just when I think, Scotty, I understand sports pretty well. I think I know my football a bit, right? Now, throw it out the window. Laugh at me, dude, because my God, how does that defense, how does the LA Chargers defense compete with the Chiefs of the world? They beat the Chiefs earlier this year. How do they compete with top tier teams? They smoked the Bengals a couple weeks ago when those 2 teams were fighting for playoff seeding. And you let up 41 points to the Houston Texans. You should be banned from the NFL for the last 2 weeks of the season.
100%, Dylan, and you know that I have had this relationship with the Chargers all season. This on
because
and off
I love
relationship.
Justin Herbert, I really do, but he stunk too.
He did, and that's the ultimate reason why they lost. Now, obviously, the defense gave up 41 points, but Justin Herbert turning the football over does not help. And that's the type of carelessness you don't want to see from your young quarterback. So down the stretch during this season, I expected the Chargers to, well, I shouldn't say the Chargers. I expected Justin Herbert to elevate this team, not detract them, not bring that team down.
It's been a common theme of this episode.
It has been. It has been. And it's an interesting conversation. Obviously, we hold Justin Herbert very highly, but the Chargers really needed to win that game. And now as we look down the stretch, obviously the Chargers still have a really good chance to get in. As you just mentioned, this upcoming schedules for the Dolphins, the Raiders, the Ravens. But it's like, do they deserve to get in the playoffs after blowing some of these games that they've blown?
No.
That's not the only game that they've blown this season. They've blown quite a few. So, as we look down this list, not a ton of these teams deserve to get in the playoffs. And you know what's funny? And this will crucify the Eagles as well, because obviously they're in that seventh wild card spot. Why the hell do we have that many teams in the playoffs? And I think that's what we're seeing right now is like there's so many teams viable for that 7th seed in each conference that it's kind of just it's going to bring one of these teams that in reality do not deserve to make the playoffs into the playoffs. And some could say that about the Eagles. Now, if the Eagles go and scoop past the 49ers, you can't say that. But
right.
Obviously, just looking down the stretch here, it looks like there's just so many teams in the playoff hunt, such tough schedules leading down the stretch that, the 7th seed, has it made it more interesting? I guess so. I guess in a sense it's worked. But in the other side of it, you're going to see a bad team in the playoffs.
It is interesting because if some of these teams at the bottom of the list here win out, they've all won 10 games.
Right.
So it's hard to say that, but you're right. When you talk like just the inconsistency through some of these playoff teams, I just don't understand it. But that this is the game that I can't get over. Like, it's the Houston Texans, dude. It's Davis Mills and Rex Burkhead, and you couldn't stop a nosebleed on defense. It was maybe one of the worst losses of the year. I mean, you can argue, obviously, the Cardinals losing to the Lions, the Bills lost to the Jags earlier in the year, but this is just as bad in terms of cannot happen. Like, as Sixers fans, we sit here and we're like, how do you lose to the Atlanta Hawks missing 8 guys? How do you lose to the Houston Texans when you're fighting for a playoff spot? So
it's ridiculous.
It is, man.
And I had them as my lock of the week as well, by the way. So shout out to me.
That's where I went wrong.
Being a clown.
That's where I went wrong. Putting money on Scotty's lock is 110% where I went wrong.
All right, Dylan. Let's get into some of this week 17 action.
Oh, we can now?
Yeah. Let's do that really quickly here. Obviously, we're getting close to that hour mark. Obviously, got the Sixers ready to take on the Brooklyn Nets.
Here's what I can do for you. I'll go down my list of every game this week that has playoff implications, and we can just kind of real quick kind of glance over them or just pick a few that we're really keeping an eye on. Obviously, anything that involves the Eagles for the most part, we are keeping strictly for Sunday. But here are the games that stuck out to me for the playoff implications. You got Miami versus Tennessee. Obviously, Tennessee fighting to keep hold of their AFC South title. Miami fighting to keep hold of that 7 seed. You got the Raiders versus the Colts. The Colts really need to continue to pile up win, not only to try to win their division in the final 2 weeks, but to not slip below that number 5 seed. And the Raiders are on the outside of the playoff hunt looking in. They need a win desperately. The Rams and the Ravens. Obviously, when you look at the Rams, only 1 game ahead of the Cardinals this year right now. They're still fighting to win the NFC West. And then you have the Ravens on the outside of the AFC looking in. Broncos, Chargers, same thing. Both teams on the outside looking in. Not so much for the Broncos in this game, but the Chargers, you lose this game, forget it. Your playoff hopes are done. You're most likely eliminated this week if you lose to your division rival. Cardinals, Cowboys. Scotty, this game is a big one because the Cowboys are still in play. They can fall anywhere from 2 to 4, and they're still technically fighting to leap Green Bay if Green Bay could kind of slip up in the final 2 weeks here. And then the Cardinals, same thing, still trying to win their division. So they need a win this week as well. Vikings, Packers, obviously we'll save that for Sunday. And then Browns, Steelers, 2 teams on the outside looking in. that one is kind of last on the totem pole. Neither team looking to really have a chance, but you never do know when Tua and the Dolphins are that 7 seed. Anything can happen down there.
Yeah, no, I thought you hit them all on the head there. Those are going to be the games that you're going to want to keep your eyes glued to if you're curious who's going to make the playoffs this year, because these are major playoff implications. And we'll probably, not probably, we will definitely get into the exact scenario that will lock the Eagles a playoff position on Sunday. So definitely keep your eyes glued for that. You want to tune in with us on Sunday. And I believe, Dylan, right, we're even considering, getting fans and listeners involved.
Yes. So anyone that is watching right now, obviously, if you want to comment on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, we will get as many as your comments up. Come hang out with us. Come have a drink with us if you want to start early, because I know I will be needing to get through that game somehow on Sunday. But come hang out with us. But we will also be dropping the link for the StreamYard. You can pop in, hang out with us for a few minutes, talk about the Eagles-Washington game, playoff situation, ask us any questions about this game, whatever you have on your mind. Pop in, hang out with us. I want to make it just a huge Eagles pregame show. Biggest one of the year, biggest one of the week, with a chance to lock up a playoff spot. And for all of our DSM Media or Turf Talk fans out there, if the Eagles are capable of locking up the spot, if they do lock up a playoff spot, stay locked into at DSM_media on Twitter, because there could be a very nice giveaway coming soon if the Eagles are able to lock up a playoff spot this week.
100%. So just a great opportunity to plug everything we got going on over at DSM Media. Huge Sunday, right? Like this is everything for us.
Wake up. So, what else are you doing? 10 a.m. I'm not saying 12 p.m. 10 a.m. Wake up. You're pumped up for the game. Come hang out with us. Hit us in the comments. Join the show. Have a mimosa. Have a beer. Have whatever the hell you want to drink.
Screen fuck Washington football.
Right. Whatever you want to say. There's no. We don't.
We don't censor here.
Yeah.
But no, you hit the nail on the head there, Dylan. You had us covered with all the matchups there, and I'm looking forward to this Sunday's action. Obviously, we will detail the key matchups that detail into the Eagles situation. So, as Dylan mentioned, we will get into that Minnesota Green Bay game on Sunday. We'll get into a little bit of the New Orleans game, and go around the league somewhat like that. But most of the time, we'll be spent.
By the way, before we wrap up, Ian Book, wow. Wow.
I tell you, man, the dude don't know how to throw it. Just throw it out of bounds, for God's sake.
I mean,
oh my goodness.
What a dreadful game to bet on.
Dylan, before we get out of here, let's update our top 5 NFL power rankings, and then we can scoot on out of here and watch this game. Updated power rankings. So let me get this off the screen here. How do you want to do it? We do it different every single week. So.
Yeah, it depends. It's a time crunch. It depends if we got time or we don't. Right now, we're trying to get out of here. So
let's just list them out. Let's list them out.
I got number. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Go ahead.
All right, I got you. So my list doesn't look too different from last week's. I won't lie to you. That's why I didn't want to spend too much time on it this week. Number 5, I got the Rams, 11-4, for obvious reasons. They're starting to turn it around. I mentioned they were able to get that W without Matthew Stafford playing his best ball. That's a good sign for the future. Number 4, I do have the Dallas Cowboys at 11-4. Hate to do it. Obviously, they came out this week and dismantled the Washington football team.
Wish I had a goddamn boo button over here.
Makes you wonder, is the Washington football team falling apart, right? Like, where are they at in their season? Obviously, COVID's derailed them, but they had some of their guys back, and they got dismantled by the Cowboys. Cowboys look good. Number 3, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're 11-4. They dismantled the Carolina Panthers this past weekend. And I'm always going to side with the GOAT, so that's what kind of puts them over the Rams and the Cowboys for me, is the fact that they have Tom Brady. So that's where I'm starting and finishing there. Number 2, I got the Kansas City Chiefs at 11-4. They've won 8 in a row now. Their defense continues to look great. They blew the Steelers out. 9 in a row now. So sitting at 11-4, they're number 1 in the AFC. Most likely going to run away with that.
I think it's 8. It's 8. You're correct.
Okay, so 8 in a row. Regardless, a lot in a row. Kansas City at number 2, number 1 in the AFC. And then number 1, obviously, Green Bay Packers sitting at 12-3. they are getting these close wins, but at the end of the day, they are wins. And you do have Aaron Rodgers playing at an MVP level. Just hope he can stay healthy with that foot injury.
We do this every week, man. But the only difference, I have the same top 5. The only difference is I have the Rams and the Cowboys swapped. I am giving Dallas some credit this week. They did make my top 5 list heading into week 17, but I will not give them the upper hand over the LA Rams because I think if the two met head to head, I would take the Rams in that matchup. So yeah, I have Cowboys 5, Rams 4, Bucks 3, Chiefs 2. I can't believe we ever counted them out after 5 weeks of playing. And then the Green Bay Packers, number 1. But what I love about this playoff picture, Scotty, what I love about this season so far and what's going to make for a fun postseason is not only are there a lot of teams still fighting to get in, you can't look at a team or two at the top and be like, Super Bowl favorites. Like, I like them. Right. I don't know if I like the Packers, the Chiefs, the Bucks, the Rams. What if, obviously the Cardinals kind of take that back seat now because of the D-Hop injury, but any of those teams, obviously Dallas is scary. What if the Bills continue to ascend and the Birds, dude? No, I'm just kidding.
You caught me off guard with that one, but I hear you. The playoffs are interesting because even just looking specifically at that NFC slate, a lot of division matchups if everything stays the same where it is right now. So you got the Rams and the 49ers who would match up in the first round, and then obviously the Cowboys and the Eagles. Anything can happen in those division matchups. I don't care what anybody says. So
give it to me. I don't care either.
Yeah, give it to me. If we get embarrassed by Dallas on the national
television,
it is bro. What it is.
So be it. Then Jalen Hurts and company take it on the chin, and that's that. But
the upside of a Jalen Hurts led Eagles team knocking the Cowboys out of the playoffs is worth way too much
compared to us just losing by expectations. Like, that's fine. I'll take it on the chin. We made the playoffs with 3 upcoming first-round draft picks and cap space. We'll see what the hell happens. But, yeah, man, obviously we're going to keep all that on hold for Sunday. Guys, come hang out with us 10 a.m. live here on DSM Media on our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch account, and live on Scotty and mine's Twitter accounts because Twitter wants to keep being a pain in the ass and not let us stream from the DSM Media account for whatever freaking reason. They don't know. StreamYard doesn't know. So this is how we have to do it from now on. If you want to interact with us, drop a comment on our Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube account, and we'll also be dropping the link for you guys to come in, hang out on the stream with us. If you want to show your face, feel free. I know some people don't want to. You don't have to turn your camera on. You can just use the audio and talk to us just as if it would be a normal phone call. So come hang out with us Sunday morning and get ready for the Eagles to clinch a playoff spot. Scotty, anything else?
No, obviously we're going to do some house cleaning before we get out of here. But one last thing I wanted to ask you. I'm sitting here watching. Sorry if I was distracted. I'm watching the Sixers start here. Who you got tonight in the Sixers game?
Damn it.
Be honest.
Be honest. I got the Nets.
Hurt me.
Hurt me. I do have the Nets.
I feel you. I hear you. Kyrie will be back soon, obviously, which is definitely scary. But off to a good start, 5-2. Let's get out of here though. Let's get our house cleaning done. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Obviously, we appreciate you here at DSM Media. With the new year coming up, definitely want to shout you guys out. Everybody that listens. Go ahead, Dylan. I'll let you plug.
We got one more thing coming. And this is a work in progress. Not everything is set in stone, but Saturday for New Year's Day, I know people got things going on. You have New Year's dinner, whatever you do, watch college football. But Team DSM Media, we may be putting together a DSM Media special somewhere Saturday, late afternoon to nighttime. We don't know the specifics yet, but we'll be on here going over Philly sports in 2021, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the big moments in Philly sports in this past year. And we'll also be putting together, a New Year's resolution or wish list, so to speak, for Philly sports. Obviously, Eagles, Sixers, Flyers. Did I say Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, Phillies Union? I forgot if I said Phillies or not. So anyone who wants to join in then is welcome as well. We'll also be hanging out, having a few drinks. So come hang out with Team DSM Media on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure to keep your eyes peeled for that. If not, if it doesn't happen, obviously that's a big if. Happy New Year to everybody that watches. Thank you.
And we'll be right back with you on Sunday.
All year. Yeah, we'll be right back Sunday, early morning. So, but definitely want to shout you all out. Thank you for an awesome year. As we get ready to bounce out of here, definitely want to shout out our sponsors over at Manscaped. As you guys know, DSM Media and Turf Talk are brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code TURF20 at manscaped.com. Manscaped engineered the ultimate groin and body trimmer by focusing on intelligent functionality and an incredibly comfortable grooming experience. Their 4th-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. This upgraded trimmer includes a multifunction on and off switch that can engage a travel lock. It also gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. And did I mention the wireless charging? The new wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help battery length last longer. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code TURF20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code TURF20. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will certainly thank you, especially going into the new year. You want your balls to be nice and fresh. So make sure you're loading up with Manscaped at manscaped.com. Use that code TURF20 for 20% off and free shipping. For my co-host Dylan, you guys can follow him on Twitter at DylanJD98. For myself, Scotty, you can find me at Scotty Drown. For DSM Media, who this is all presented to you by, you can find us at DSM_media. For myself, for Dylan, for DSM Media, that is going to be it for this show. Peace.